All right, let's get right into it. Today, we're taking a look at a king who's, well, pretty easy to miss in the Bible, King Jotham of Judah. His story is short, just tucked away in a couple of quick chapters. But man, is there a powerful lesson in there about what it really means to lead, to have integrity, and, what success actually looks like when everything around you is falling apart.
Here's the best way to think about him. Jotham is kind of the historical equivalent of a middle child. He's not the dramatic older brother who makes all the headlines or the baby of the family who gets all the attention. Nope, he's the steady one, the reliable one. And honestly, in the absolute chaos that was the line of Judah's kings, being steady makes him a complete unicorn.
But his story is also, well, it's really frustrating. It sort of breaks that simple deal we think exists. Good leader does good things, and then society gets fixed. Jotham's life shows us that's not always how it works. So, the big question we're going to dig into is this. How can a genuinely righteous leader be in charge when the people themselves are still corrupt? It's like being a good captain on a ship full of mutineers. Now, to get Jotham, you first have to get his dad, King Uzziah. And let me tell you, Uzziah left a massive, and I mean massive, and complicated legacy. Jotham was standing in a very, very long shadow.
See, Uzziah wasn't just some king. The guy was a titan. He ruled for 52 years. That's an eternity in the ancient world. He was an innovator. He actually invented engines of war, basically catapults. He built up Jerusalem, expanded the borders, and turned Judah into an economic powerhouse. Jotham wasn't inheriting some fixer-upper kingdom. He was being handed the keys to a Fortune 500 company at its absolute peak.
But Uzziah fumbled at the goal line, and the text in 2 Chronicles gives us this one chilling sentence that explains everything. It says, "But when he was strong, his heart was lifted up to his destruction." All that power went straight to his head. He got arrogant, marched into the temple, and tried to do a job that was only for the priests. And when they called him out, he got furious. In that exact moment, leprosy broke out on his forehead. He spent the rest of his life as an outcast, a living, breathing warning to his son. And this is where you see how incredibly smart Jotham was. He didn't just copy his dad. And he didn't just rebel either. He very carefully took all of his father's strengths, doing right by God, building up the nation. But, and this is the whole key, he learned from his dad's biggest, most catastrophic mistake. The Bible makes a point of saying he did not go into the temple. He kept the good features, but he fixed the fatal bug. And that specific, calculated decision reveals everything about Jotham's leadership. It wasn't about flash or big, bold new ideas. It was all about the power of preparation. This one verse right here is basically the thesis statement for Jotham's entire reign. Just listen to this. "So Jotham became mighty, because he prepared his ways before the Lord his God." It's so simple, but it's everything. His strength didn't come from his dad's army or his wealth. It came from this one intentional act, preparation. So what does prepared even mean here? Well, the original Hebrew word is kan. And this isn't just about writing a to-do list. The word means to be firm, to be stable, to establish something. It's about setting a course and locking it in. Think about it like this. It's like a pilot locking in a flight plan before the plane even pulls away from the gate. So when the storm hits or when political pressure gets intense, Jotham isn't scrambling to figure out what to do. He's not making it up as he goes. He already knows. He had already established his ways. And that steady, immovable foundation is exactly what made him mighty. Okay, so this brings us to the part of the story that is just maddening. You've got a prepared, steady, righteous king on the throne. The kingdom should be thriving, right? Everyone should be falling in line. Well, this is where the story throws a major curveball. Jotham literally did everything right. He built the upper gate of the temple, he fortified the nation's walls, he followed God's law to the letter. And yet, the text just bluntly says, the people still acted corruptly. That disconnect is so jarring. It just feels like a total slap in the face to all his hard work. So what did this corruption look like? The text points to this ongoing problem of the high places. Now, this wasn't necessarily, some kind of dark satanic cult. It was more like unauthorized, do-it-yourself religion. People were basically saying, yeah, I'll worship God, but I'm going to do it my way, on this nice hill that's closer to my house. So you had this orthodox king, but the people were spiritually chaotic and disobedient. So what's a king to do? I mean, he couldn't exactly force people's hearts to change. So instead, he focused on the one thing he could control, the physical structure of the nation. He built walls, new cities, fortresses. It's almost like he was saying, look, I can't fix the rot inside you, but I can at least build a strong, secure container. He was creating a sanctuary of stability, even if the culture inside was a total mess. So Jotham's dealing with all this internal decay. But, just to make things even more fun, the rest of the world decides to catch on fire at the exact same moment.
Okay, so way out in the east, the terrifying Assyrian Empire, think of them as the Death Star of the ancient world, is getting bigger and badder. The kingdoms just north of Judah, Syria and Israel, they totally panic and form an alliance. They look at Jotham and say, hey, we need your army and we really need your dad's fancy catapults. But Jotham refuses to join their fight. So what do? They decide to invade Judah and put a puppet king on his throne.
Now here is where the story gets really, really weird. The text in 2 Kings doesn't just say this invasion was bad luck. It says something that should make us all stop and take a breath. It says, "In those days the Lord began to send against Judah, Rizin the king of Syria and Pekah the son of Remaliah." Did you catch that? The Lord began to send them.
And that just completely dismantles our simple ideas about how the world works, right? Jotham is the good guy here. He's the one who prepared his ways before the Lord. So why on earth would God send a geopolitical hit squad after him?
Well, there are two ways we can look at this. On one hand, you could say the nation itself was deeply corrupt, and that kind of behavior invites divine discipline. So Jotham was just the captain of a ship sailing into a storm his own crew created. But on another level, maybe this was a test for the king Jotham had prepared for years. It's almost like God was saying, okay, you built the strong walls, let's see if they actually hold up under pressure.
And when you see it that way, it completely reframes our entire definition of success, especially when you find out how Jotham's story ends.
Because here's the final twist. Jotham died as those enemy armies were on the march, heading right for his borders. He never even saw how the war turned out, so his success, it wasn't winning the battle. His success was building a kingdom that was strong enough to endure the storm and holding that line right up until his very last breath.
So the takeaway is this. Jotham was a rock in a landslide. The landslide of his people's corruption, of his enemies' aggression, that was all still happening. But the rock itself, the rock did not move. He controlled the only thing he really could, himself.
And that brings the lesson right into our own lives, doesn't it? Jotham's story tells us that sometimes the real victory is just standing firm. You aren't responsible for the landslide you didn't start. You are responsible for your own prepared ways for taking care of the gate that you were given to build.
Which really leaves us with a tough question to sit with. If you do everything right, if you prepare your ways and you guard your post, but the people you're trying to lead still go off the rails, have you failed as a leader? Or have you actually succeeded as an individual? It's something to think about for sure.